I never wanted the badge to define me. People think you put on the uniform, you strap on the vest, you pin the medal to your chest, and suddenly you become someone else. Someone stronger, someone untouchable. But that's a lie. The truth? The badge doesn't erase who you are. It magnifies it. And me? I was a black man first. A son, a brother, a kid from a neighborhood that taught me to run at the sound of sirens, not wave them down for help. I still remember the day I swore in. My mother stood in the back of the courtroom, her hands folded tight, like if she unclenched them, the whole world would unravel. She had prayed for years that I would live long enough to escape the streets. And when she saw me take that oath, for a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw pride in her eyes. But behind that pride was something else. Fear. Because she knew what I was walking into. She knew the truth I hadn't yet faced. That wearing blue in this country didn't erase my blackness. It put a target on my back on both sides. The streets never let me forget it. Every time I walked into a store in uniform, brothers would look away, jaws tight, shaking their heads. To them, I wasn't Marcus anymore. I wasn't the kid who shot hoops at the rec center or helped old Mrs. Jenkins carry her groceries up the stairs. No. The moment I put on that badge, I became the enemy. And the other side? The side I was supposed to belong to the officers who called themselves my brothers in arms? They never let me forget it either. The jokes in the locker room, the sideways glances when a call came in about a black suspect, the way they'd pause, waiting to see whose side I'd take. Blue before black. That's what they told me. As if I could peel my skin off like it was just another layer of the uniform. But I couldn't, because when I looked in the mirror at night, after the sirens faded and the streets quieted down, I didn't see a cop. I saw a black man wearing a costume that didn't quite fit. A man caught in the crossfire between justice and survival. And the truth was, deep down, I wasn't sure if I'd chosen this life, or if it had chosen me. The war I fought wasn't in the alleys. It wasn't in the streets. And it wasn't against the men I arrested. No, the real war lived inside me. Every single day. Every single night. A war between the uniform I put on and the skin I could never take off. I'd drive through the city, red and blue lights cutting through the night, and every block I passed felt like a battlefield. Not because of danger, but because of distrust. When I pulled someone over, especially a black driver, something happened. Something silent. They'd look at me through the window. I'd look back at them, and in that stare, there was a question. A question neither of us ever spoke out loud, but we both felt it pressing between us. Whose side are you on? Their hands would grip the wheel tight, knuckles white, veins rising like rivers under their skin. Their eyes locked on me, unblinking. Suspicion, anger, fear. Sometimes the words slipped out. How do you do it, man? How do you wear that badge when they wear it to kill us? And when they asked me, I didn't know what to say. Because I had asked myself the same thing 100 times in the mirror. Other times, they said nothing at all. But silence has a way of speaking louder than words. I could feel it in their stare, heavy and sharp, cutting through the glass, through the badge, through the armor I tried to build around myself. They didn't see Marcus, the boy from the neighborhood, the son of a praying mother, the man who still carried his grandmother's Bible in the glove box of his car. No, they saw a traitor, and I hated myself for knowing that a part of me understood why. But the community wasn't the only side watching me. Back at the station, my so-called brothers in blue had their eyes on me too. When we got calls in black neighborhoods, I could feel them watching, waiting to see what I'd do, waiting to see if I'd hesitate, if I'd treat a black man differently than I'd treat anyone else, and if I so much as took a second longer to speak, if I so much as eased my tone instead of raising it, the room would go quiet. I could feel it, their judgment, their whispers. At first, it was subtle. Locker room jokes that weren't really jokes. Comments like, bet you feel at home here, huh? Or, don't forget which side you're on. But then, it grew darker. One night, I opened my locker after a shift and found a note sitting on top of my vest. No name, no signature, Just 3 words scrawled in thick, angry ink. Pick a side. That note haunted me, because it told me the truth I didn't want to face. To them, I wasn't both. I was never allowed to be both. I was either black or I was blue. And whichever I chose, the other side would see me as the enemy. The war wasn't just silent. It was suffocating. Every day, it tightened around me like a noose. In my own neighborhood, the kids I once played ball with now turned their backs when I drove by. Mothers pulled their children closer when they saw me in uniform. Old men muttered sellout under their breath as I passed. At a family reunion, one of my cousins refused to shake my hand. He looked me in the eye and said, "You can't serve us and serve them at the same time." And what hurt most was that deep down, I didn't know if he was wrong. I told myself it was just the uniform, that once my shift ended, once I hung the badge on the hook, I'd be Marcus again, just Marcus. But that was a lie, because the badge followed me everywhere. In the grocery store, in the barber shop, even in my own home. I'd lie awake at night, sirens screaming in the distance, and I'd hear those words over and over. Pick a side. And in the silence of those nights, a darker question crept in. Not whether the world would ever accept me, not whether my community would ever forgive me. No, the question that haunted me most was this: could I ever accept myself? Because in this silent war, I wasn't sure if there was a side left for me to stand on. The first time it happened, I wasn't ready. The city was already on edge. Another name, another body, another headline splashed across the evening news. A black man gunned down by police, and the streets erupted with a pain that had been simmering for decades. The protests came fast, spreading like fire. Chants, signs, raised fists, people demanding to be seen, demanding to be heard, demanding to live. And me? I was there too, but not with them. I stood across from them, helmet on, baton in hand, shield in front of me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't Marcus from the block. I wasn't a son, a neighbor, a friend. I was just another uniform in a long, unbroken line of blue. The chants thundered down the street. Black lives matter. Hands up, don't shoot. Each word cut like a blade, sharp and relentless. But I stayed silent, because silence was what the badge demanded. And then, it happened. Through the crowd, a boy stepped forward. He couldn't have been older than 12, maybe 13 at most. His face was fierce, but his voice trembled with something deeper than fear, something older, something inherited. He raised his finger and pointed it straight at me. "You!" he shouted. His voice cracked, but it carried like thunder. "How can you wear that badge when they wear it to kill us?" The crowd erupted. Eyes turned, dozens, maybe hundreds of them staring at me, waiting. I could feel the heat of their anger pressing down, wave after wave. And for a moment, the shield in my hands felt heavier than steel. That boy's eyes, they locked on me like shackles, wide, brown, burning with betrayal. And in that instant, I wasn't standing in uniform anymore. I was back on my block, 12 years old myself, running from flashing lights, ducking behind fences, praying I'd make it home. I saw myself in him, and I hated it. I wanted to answer. I wanted to rip the helmet off, drop the baton, and tell him the truth. That I wasn't here to hurt him. That I joined the force to protect kids like him. That I believed in justice, even when justice didn't believe in me. But my mouth wouldn't move, because behind me, I could feel the eyes of my fellow officers, watching, waiting, measuring every breath, every twitch, every word I didn't say. And in that silence, I realized I wasn't just trapped behind a shield. I was trapped inside the war itself. The chants grew louder, filling the night, drowning me in their fire. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Each voice felt like a hammer pounding against my chest. And I knew the boy had spoken what everyone else was thinking. I had become a symbol, not of safety, not of strength, but of betrayal. For the rest of the night, his question burned in my head. How can you wear that badge when they wear it to kill us? I carried it home. I carried it to bed. I carried it into my dreams. And no matter how I turned it, twisted it, tried to silence it, I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew he wasn't just asking me. He was accusing me. Accusing me of being part of a system that had stolen his innocence before he even had the chance to grow into it. And the worst part? I didn't know if he was wrong. That night, I stared at my badge longer than I ever had before. It used to shine like a promise. Now it looked like a curse. Because in the eyes of that boy, that crowd, and maybe even in my own eyes, the badge wasn't protecting me anymore. It was condemning me. And so the war inside me deepened. But this time, for the first time, I wasn't the only one fighting it. A boy had dragged it into the light. And with just one question, he lit a spark inside me I could never put out again. The night after the protest, I sat alone in my squad car. The engine hummed beneath me. The radio crackled with calls I couldn't bring myself to answer. But in my head, there was only silence. The boy's voice still echoed through me. How can you wear that badge when they wear it to kill us? It didn't matter how much I tried to bury it, tried to justify it, tried to remind myself of why I joined the force in the first place. The words wouldn't leave me. Because deep down, I knew he wasn't just shouting at me. He was stripping me bare. Exposing the war I had been too afraid to face out loud. The next evening, the protests returned. This time, the crowd was bigger, louder, angrier. The air itself seemed to shake with their voices. Signs swayed high above heads. Justice for all. Stop killing us. Black Lives Matter. And once again, we lined up across from them. Shields raised, batons tight, helmets low, like soldiers preparing for battle. Only this wasn't a battlefield. This was my city, my people. The chants hit harder this time. Black Lives Matter. Say his name. Each word felt like a stone hurled across the line, striking me square in the chest. My fellow officers didn't flinch. They stood tall, eyes forward, faces cold and unshaken. But me, inside, I was breaking. Because when I looked into the crowd, I didn't just see strangers. I saw faces I knew. Neighbors, friends, mothers who once fed me dinner at their tables, teachers who once scolded me for talking too loud in class, kids I used to play ball with on hot summer nights. And then I saw him again. The boy, the same one who had pointed at me the night before, the same one whose words had torn me open. He stood near the front, his small fists clenched around a cardboard sign that read, "Am I next?" My chest tightened, my throat burned, because for the first time I realized he wasn't just pointing at me, he was pleading with me. The order came down the line. Hold the line, push forward if they advance. The command felt mechanical, robotic, like they weren't talking about people, just obstacles. But my hands wouldn't move. I couldn't raise my baton. I couldn't tighten my grip on the shield, because the truth hit me harder than any protester ever could. I wasn't standing on the right side of the line. So I did something no one expected. I lowered my baton. I lowered my shield. And then I took a step forward. At first, the crowd went silent, confused, suspicious. And my fellow officers? They stiffened. I could feel their eyes drilling into my back, burning with disbelief and anger. But I didn't stop. I unlatched my helmet, lifted it off, and let it fall to the ground. And with both hands raised high, I stepped into the crowd. A hush fell across the street. Every eye locked on me. Every breath held still. And then, with a voice that shook but refused to break, I said, "I'm here. I hear you. And I stand with you." For a moment, there was only silence. A silence so heavy, I thought it might crush me. Then, one voice rose. Then another, and another. The chants didn't stop that night. But something changed. Because for the first time, they weren't just shouting against me. They were shouting around me, with me, but on the other side of the line, my brothers in blue weren't chanting. They weren't clapping. They weren't smiling. They were glaring. And in their eyes, I could see it written clear as day. I had crossed more than a line. I had betrayed them. That night, I walked away, without a shield, without a baton, without a helmet. But for the first time since I pinned that badge to my chest, I felt like I had chosen something for myself. I hadn't picked a side because the world demanded it. I picked it because justice demanded it. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. The morning after the protest, I walked into the precinct like I always did. Same uniform, same badge, same boots echoing against the tile. But everything was different. The room went quiet when I stepped inside. Conversations died mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. And for the first time in my career, I realized silence could feel louder than shouting. I went to my locker, opened it. The air inside felt cold, heavier than it should have. Taped to the inside of the door was a photo, a protest photo. It was me stepping into the crowd, me with my hands raised, me with my shield lowered. Across the photo, scrawled in red marker, were 4 words that made my stomach twist. You chose your side. The rest of the day, the whispers never stopped. Can't trust him anymore. Soft. Traitor. And the one that stung the most, he's not one of us. They didn't say it loud enough for the sergeant to hear. They didn't need to. They wanted me to hear it. Wanted me to feel the weight of being on the outside, in a place where brotherhood was supposed to mean everything. Patrol was worse. When calls came in, my partners stopped riding with me. They made excuses, said they were reassigned, said they were busy. But I knew the truth. Nobody wanted to sit next to me anymore. The squad car, once filled with chatter, jokes, and the easy rhythm of routine, now felt like a coffin. Silent, isolated. I drove the streets alone. Lights reflecting off empty glass, wondering if I had traded one kind of loneliness for another. But the hardest part wasn't the silence. It was the eyes. The stares from men I'd once called brothers. Men I had bled with. Men I had trusted to cover my back in alleys and dark corners. Now those same eyes burned with suspicion, with anger, with something darker and betrayal. One night, I stayed late. Paperwork spread across my desk. The room had emptied. The hum of the vending machine, the only sound left. When I finally walked to the lot, my car was waiting under the dim yellow glow of the streetlight. At first, I didn't notice. But then, I saw it. Fortiers / clean. Rubber Shrell. And across the windshield, sprayed in dripping white paint. Blue before black. My chest went cold. My fists clenched so tight they shook. Because in that moment, it wasn't just words. It was a threat, a warning, and a promise that this wasn't over. The next morning, I sat in roll call. The sergeant's voice droned on about patrol routes, about duty, about responsibility, but I couldn't hear him. All I could hear was my heart pounding in my chest, because every head in that room was turned slightly toward me. Every glance was quick, sharp, loaded with unspoken judgment. And in their silence, I understood. I wasn't part of the brotherhood anymore. I was the enemy inside their walls. But here's the thing about brotherhood. You don't really know what it's worth until it's taken from you. And as I sat there, surrounded by men I no longer trusted, and who no longer trusted me, I realized something. I had given everything to this badge. My loyalty, my silence, even my soul. But the moment I stood for justice, it gave me nothing in return. From that day forward, the precinct wasn't my home. It was my battlefield. And the brothers I once fought beside, they had become enemies in flesh. It was late, the kind of late where the streets are empty, but the city never really sleeps. The kind of late where every pair of headlights feels like a question. I was patrolling alone like I always did now. The radio crackled with static, but most of the night was silence. Silence and my thoughts. That's when I saw it. A car swerving down the road. Too fast, too careless. The tires clipped the curb, then jerked back. Drunk driver. I'd seen it 100 times before. Routine stop. I flipped the lights. The car slowed, wobbled, then pulled over under the harsh glow of a street lamp. As I approached, the world narrowed. The hum of the engine, the smell of burnt rubber, the faint sound of music bleeding from the cracked window. I tapped on the glass. It rolled down with a squeal. And when I looked inside, My chest tightened. Behind the wheel was a face I recognized. The boy from the protest. The same one who had pointed at me. The same one whose words had burned into my bones. How can you wear that badge when they wear it to kill us? And in the passenger seat, a little girl. His sister. Her eyes wide, scared, clutching the seatbelt across her chest like it could shield her from the world. The boy reeked of alcohol. His eyes were glassy, unfocused. License and registration, I said, my voice steady, though my heart wasn't. He fumbled with the glove box, dropped the papers, cursed under his breath. His hands shook not just from the alcohol, but from fear. Because he knew what could happen in this moment. He knew the stories, the names, the hashtags, and I knew them too. By the book, I should have cuffed him. Breathalyzer, arrest, call social services for the girl. That's what protocol demanded. But as I stood there, staring at this boy who once looked at me with nothing but anger, I saw something else. I saw myself. I saw the nights I'd made mistakes. Nights I could have been one bad decision away from becoming a headline. Nights where the only thing that saved me was mercy. And now here he was. Young, reckless, stupid, but not evil, not beyond saving. Just a boy trying to carry the weight of a world too heavy for his shoulders. I crouched down, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Listen to me, I said. You're drunk, and you've got your little sister in the car. Do you know what that means? Do you know what could have happened tonight? He looked down. Shame burned across his face. She needs you, I said, glancing at the girl. And I don't mean tomorrow. I don't mean next year. I mean right now. She needs you alive, sober, present, not locked up, not buried. His lip trembled. He nodded, just barely. I took his keys, closed the door gently, walked around to the passenger side and opened it. Come on, sweetheart, I said to the girl, offering my hand. I'm driving you both home tonight. Her small fingers slipped into mine, trembling but trusting. And as she climbed into the back of my squad car, the boy followed, silent, broken, but alive. The drive was quiet. The girl leaned her head against the window, eyelids heavy, her tiny breaths fogging the glass. The boy sat slumped beside her, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. When we pulled up to their house, I handed him his keys back. This is your second chance, I said. Don't make me regret it. He swallowed hard. His eyes met mine for the first time without anger. Why? He whispered. Why didn't you take me in? I paused, searching for the right words. Because I don't want to bury another black boy tonight, I said. And neither does she. As they walked up the steps, I sat in my car, engine idling, headlights cutting through the dark. For the first time in weeks, the weight in my chest felt a little lighter. Not gone, but lighter. Because in a world where I felt powerless, where every choice seemed like a trap tonight, I chose mercy. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to save him. But as I drove away, a thought crept in. What would my brothers in blue say if they knew? To them, mercy wasn't justice. Mercy was weakness. And in their eyes, weakness was unforgivable. There's a saying in the department, the badge protects its own. But after that night, after I let the boy and his sister go, I realized something darker. The badge doesn't protect its own. It protects itself. And me? I wasn't part of it anymore. I was a crack in the shield, a leak in the dam, and they were ready to patch it by any means necessary. It started with the little things. My patrol car wasn't fueled when I signed in. My reports went missing from the system, accidentally deleted. Backup requests took longer to answer, sometimes minutes that felt like lifetimes. And every time, when I asked why, I got the same look. Blank, cold, like they knew exactly what was happening, but none of them would say a word. Then the notes started showing up, folded slips of paper in my locker, tucked into my paperwork, slid under my door at night, all written in the same jagged hand. Blue doesn't forget. You'll pay for betraying us. Next call, don't expect backup. I burned the first one. I crumpled the second. But the third I kept. Because deep down, I knew it wasn't just words anymore. It was a promise. Every shift felt like walking into an ambush. My squad car mirrors adjusted themselves when I wasn't looking. My radio clicked with static, but sometimes, just sometimes, I swore I heard whispers on the other end. Names, threats, laughter, and the silence from internal affairs was deafening. I filed a report. I tried to speak up, but when I walked into that office, the captain leaned back in his chair, eyes cold, lips curled into something between a smirk and a sneer. "Careful, officer," he said. "No one likes a rat." That was all. That was enough. The community I served looked at me like a question mark. The department I worked for looked at me like a threat. And in the middle, I was drowning. Because when you don't belong to either side, the shadows are the only thing left to keep you company. One night, the shadows came closer. I was called to a domestic disturbance. Routine. Nothing unusual. But when I pulled up, something was wrong. No lights in the house. No sound. Just silence. Heavy and wrong. My gut twisted. I radioed for backup. Static. No response. I tried again. Louder. Sharper. Nothing. I stepped inside. The floor creaked beneath my boots. The air smelled like dust. And something metallic, sharp enough to sting my nose. Room after room. Empty. Cleared. Until I reached the kitchen. And there, taped to the refrigerator, was a single sheet of paper. On it, a photo. Me, standing outside the boy's house, handing him back his keys, the girl at his side, and scrawled across the photo in thick black ink, "We see you." I froze. My hands shook as I pulled the paper down. My chest felt tight, like the walls themselves were pressing in. This wasn't intimidation anymore. This was surveillance. They weren't just watching me. They were watching the boy, the girl, the people I had tried to protect. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me anymore. If I kept standing where I stood, if I kept choosing mercy, they wouldn't just come for me. They'd come for anyone I touched. I drove home that night with every mirror checked, every shadow followed. The streets felt hostile. The city felt colder. And my badge, once a shield, now felt like a target pinned to my chest. I sat in the dark of my living room, staring at it on the table, the faint reflection of my own eyes staring back. And I asked myself the question I'd been running from since this all began. How long before they decide silence isn't enough? How long before shadows turn into bullets? For the first time, I wondered, maybe standing for what was right didn't mean saving lives. Maybe it meant trading mine. They say every man has a breaking point. I used to think mine was far away buried under years of discipline, control, training. But the truth is, breaking points don't creep. They snap. And mine snapped the day I realized the badge I carried wasn't protection. It was a leash. It started with the summons. I was ordered into the captain's office. The blinds were drawn. The air smelled of stale coffee and cigar smoke. He didn't offer me a seat. Didn't even look at me at first. Just held a file in his hands, thick with reports, papers, and photographs. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were cold steel. "You've been compromised," he said flatly. Compromised. The word rattled in my skull. I wasn't a spy. I wasn't a traitor. But to them, I was worse. I was a man who dared to choose conscience over silence. The captain slid the file across the desk. I opened it. Inside were surveillance photos. Every one of them me. Me at the protest. Me outside the boy's house. Me with his little sister, her hand in mine. Every act of mercy turned into evidence. Every choice of compassion twisted into betrayal. And stapled to the last page was a recommendation: suspension, pending investigation. I clenched my fists. Heat rose in my chest. "You think mercy is a crime?" I asked, my voice shaking with fury. The captain leaned forward, his lips curled into something between a smile and a sneer. "Mercy gets men killed. Mercy gets officers buried. And if you're too blind to see that, then you're already dead to us." Dead to us. The words cut sharper than any blade. When I walked out of that office, every eye in the precinct followed me. Some with pity, some with hatred, all with judgment. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They didn't hide their contempt. Should have been fired already. Traitor in a uniform. He chose them, not us. Every word chipped away at the armor I'd built inside myself. Every glance reminded me I was alone. But then it got worse. That night, I stopped at a corner store, picked up milk, bread, nothing special. When I came out, the boy was there. The same boy from the protest, from the traffic stop. But this time, he wasn't angry. He wasn't drunk. He was scared. "They're watching us," he whispered. His voice cracked, eyes darting over his shoulder. Unmarked cars, parked outside my house. Men I've never seen before. My heart sank. The shadows weren't just mine anymore. They were his sisters, the people I swore to protect. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my living room, the badge on the table, the boy's words echoing in my head. "They're watching us." I thought of the girl, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, her eyes wide with trust. And for the first time, I wondered if my fight for justice had painted a target not on my back, but on theirs. The next day, it happened. I was on patrol, though suspended. They hadn't stripped me yet. Maybe they wanted me in the field one last time. Dispatch called in a disturbance. I answered, even though my gut screamed not to. When I arrived, I knew immediately. It was a setup. No voices, no chaos, just silence. The house was dark, same as before. And taped to the door this time wasn't a threat. It was a photo, not of me, of the boy and his sister. Her school uniform, his face pale with fear, and beneath it, the words, "Your choice, badge or blood." I staggered back, my breath heavy, my heart pounding, because now it was clear. The department wasn't just trying to break me. They were using me, testing me. Would I cling to the badge, even if it meant sacrificing the people who trusted me? Or would I choose them and make myself the enemy for good? That night, I sat in the dark, staring at my badge. It used to shine. It used to mean something. But now, under the flickering light of my kitchen, all I saw was a weapon. Not against crime, not against injustice, but against us, against me, against the boy, against every face that ever looked at me and wondered if I was friend or foe. And as the night stretched on, I knew the breaking point wasn't coming. It was here, and I had already crossed it. The night was heavy, du quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your skin itch, that makes every shadow feel alive. I knew it was coming. I'd felt it building for weeks, the whispers, the threats, the traps. But when the call came in, my chest still tightened. Disturbance at the boy's address. Possible armed suspects. It wasn't random. It wasn't chance. It was the end. I drove fast, sirens off, lights dark. Every block felt like a countdown. Every turn felt like a question. Was this the last time I'd ever drive these streets? When I pulled up, the house was silent. Too silent. The porch light flickered. The curtains drawn. I stepped out, hand on my holster, eyes scanning the dark. Then I saw at the front door, cracked open, and inside, voices. Low, sharp, laughing. I moved through the doorway, slow and steady. And there they were, 3 men, officers, my brothers, but not in uniform, plain clothes, badges tucked away. One of them held the boy by the collar, shoving him against the wall. The girl was crying in the corner, small hands covering her face. The officer with his hand on the boy looked up when he saw me, and he smiled, right on time. My gun was out before I realized it. "Let him go," I said, my voice like gravel. The room went still. Then, slowly, the officer released the boy. The kid stumbled forward, gasping, eyes wide with terror. "Easy, brother," the man said, hands raised. "You don't want to do this." Brother. The word hit me like a hammer. How many times had I heard it in roll call, on patrol, in dark alleys when backup came through? Brother, brotherhood. But this wasn't brotherhood. This was blood in the water. "Why?" I demanded. My voice cracked, anger boiling over. "Why go after kids?" The man smirked. Because you made us. He stepped closer, eyes hard. You turned your back on us. You chose them. And when a man chooses wrong, he has to pay. The room spun. My hands shook, but I didn't lower the gun. I looked at the boy, at his sister, at their small, terrified faces. And I thought about the badge on my chest, the oath I had taken, the promises I had made. Protect and serve. But protect who? Serve what? The badge was supposed to mean something. But standing here, I finally understood the truth. The badge was never my oath. They were. Not tonight, I said, my voice steady now. Not them. Not ever. And in that moment, I knew there was no going back. The officer's smile faded. His eyes hardened. Then you're done, he said. You're not one of us. And that was the last straw. I pulled the badge from my chest, ripped it free, and let it fall to the floor. It hit the wood with a dull, final sound. I was never yours, I said. The next moments blurred. A gun raised. A shout. The crack of thunder inside four walls. I fired first. The room exploded into chaos. When the smoke cleared, 2 men were down. The third had fled. And in the silence that followed, I heard it, a sob, small and fragile. The girl, she ran to me, clutching my leg, burying her face in my uniform. The boy stood behind her, shaking but alive. And in their eyes, I saw it. Not fear, not hatred, but trust. That night, I didn't leave with my badge. I didn't leave as an officer. I left as something else. A protector, a man who chose people over power, blood over blue. The city will call me a traitor. The department will call me a disgrace. Maybe even the law will come for me next. But as I walked those kids into the night, their small hands gripping mine like I was the only thing left between them and the dark, I knew the truth. I hadn't betrayed the badge. The badge had betrayed me. And for the first time in my life, I was free.